Hey, it's a fairly early evening recording. It's 9 o'clock and you can actually see me. This is what it would look like in the dark if there was light. I am reading now The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie, a British fantasy author, the grim dark um, variety. I guess he's one of the examples of at least the kind of the more modern thing. Not if you don't count George R.R. Um, and this, yeah, set in a very kind of, I guess, a gritty fantasy world. It seems to be at the moment following three different threads. One is Logan Nine Fingers, who has seems to have gotten ambushed by some flatheads creatures. I don't know what kind of creatures they are. Um, Ended up off a cliff because he got bitten by one of the creatures, like bit him right in the leg, so he threw himself off the cliff into is it like a river or whatever, something like that. And it's like, it's very much dog eat dog. He survives that, but he gets back to the camp and all his friends are gone. And they have a really good thing of him going through all the stuff at the camp, like what's left, and he throws over a rotten thing, and there's his pot, like this battered old dented pot that he's had for years. And it's just one of those nice little details of like, this is my pot. This is like, he's got a pot to piss in. Not that he would piss in it because it's his cooking pot. um, but yeah, he's a very battered warrior fellow, but he doesn't have any weapons. And Yeah, he ends up going to kind of talk to spirits who say you got to go meet a mage, and they send to this place, and the mage doesn't show up, but his apprentice does. And they they're, they're like, oh, I lost your horse, so they only have the one horse. So they're slipping through the woods when they get jumped by three. Well, first initially three guys, and then someone with a bow and arrow in the thing, and he manages to kill the three guys and the bowman, who turns out to be just like a 14-year-old kid, but it's basically just, it's survival. So they kill them, and then they're like, okay, well, do any of them have food? Because we're starving to death, and our horse got slashed by a axe blade and ran off. So we're really fucked. So yeah, it's very kind of hard Scrabble. Like, you don't have money, you don't have food, you're in the wilderness, you could die, and you sort of do feel that in this. So that's the most hard Scrabble of the things. We've got actually no, we should do what's his name? Oh, he's a torturer. We don't know he's a torturer at first. He seems like, oh, this is an aged man who's trying to go downstairs. That's how we first meet him. Uh, Sandal. We'll call him Sandal for right now. Sand, Dal, something. Sand. And he's like trying to go downstairs, and you think, oh, he's like a really aged guy. Um, and he makes it down the stairs, and he makes it into what turns out to be a dungeon where he is torturing somebody for information. He works for this, whatever kind of the government here. This guy has, um, and he's like, I belong to a powerful guild, and it's like, you can't do this to me. And it's like, oh yeah, well, we can totally do this to you. And they beat on him a bit, and they show him the instruments of torture, and it's like, I'll just leave you alone for half an hour because his boss wants to see him, and his boss wants to see him because, like, what the hell are you doing? This is a part of the Mendicant Guild. Like, they are very powerful people. It's like, oh, we'll just do this one. It's like, no, you can't. And the guy one of his minions, he said, burst into the room with the box in about this amount of time. And he bursts into the room, puts down the box, and it's filled with money. He's like, well, okay, just this one. And yeah, so he goes back to torture the guy. But what happens is the big guy says, no, you're coming to see me right now. It's like, fuck, did I get ratted out that quickly? And it's like, no, we don't care about this guy, but we want him to confess that it was a higher this higher lord guy who's a minister of the manse or something like that. I think it's like a mint or something, I don't know. He's been conspiring because we want to get him. It's like, okay, can I say ask why? It's like, no. But what we find out is this guy is 35 years old. He's not an old man. What happened is he got taken prisoner, and he'd been tortured for like 4 years, and his teeth, it's like every other tooth has been pulled out of his mouth in alternating things from top to bottom. So he can't chew. He can only like drink. That's how he gets his sustenance, and his body is really, really broken. And you learn later through interaction with another soldier that he was like a fine soldier, you know, could could duel and stuff like that. But now he's got this completely broken body, and he got sent to kind of like crap nowhere. And everyone hated him there. But he doubled production of, like, it was a mines or something. So he's a very effective guy and a very ruthless guy. Um, and yeah, so we've got that storyline where he's been sent after this lord. And yes, and so we go into the next one, which is Giselle, just this spoiled duke got, I don't know, spoiled lordling kind of guy, and he's super entitled, and they're gambling, and he's got lots of money, but he also likes to gamble so he can spend even more. He's getting sword trained, but he's such a kind of entitled twerp that he also goes out drinking, and he doesn't have his head, he doesn't care that much. I mean, he cares in the sense of like he because he has to be trained, because that's the way you get um, advancement into the kind of the big whatever royal guard is, and that is where you'll get a commission, and his father will continue with his allowance, which is the big thing. So it's like he's doing all this stuff, and indeed we have stuff with like the training master who's making him run all the way upstairs and things like that. And he always makes sure, oh, I went by some ladies, oh, I run faster and say hello, ladies, and then I immediately slow down again. And he goes out and he whores that night. And when he does, he's coming out of the thing, and he finds there's some shadowy figures that just bagged a guy, put a bag over a guy's head, and like, what the hell are you doing? At which point, Sandal comes out from the shadows and says, "They're with me. I'm part of the king's inquisition." And it's like, and his friend West, who is an actual soldier, but is common born, but has kind of, through effort and through training, has actually brought himself up to this level. Not that Giselle actually thinks that commoners should actually be allowed to do stuff like that. He recognizes him, and it's like, yes, he was he was a soldier, and they were soldiers together. And Sandal's like, oh, don't worry, I don't blame you, not for that. Which is like, I'd be worried if I was that guy West. Um, so yeah, they let him go along on his way. It's like, you do not mess with this guy and his kind of albino, scary fellow minions, who are all torturers and murderers, and basically all the people doing the dark deeds for the Empire, all the bad stuff, all the bad black ops stuff that needs to get done. Um, and West goes like, and the next day it's like, oh, West is like, oh, they're walking around, and it's like they get called because he gets called because they need all the general needs all its men, because there's some kind of, it looks like some opposing forces finished with one people and are thinking about now coming after us. And so he says, fuck, my sister's here. He says, okay, hey, Giselle, you can take care of my sister. It's like, like I want to take care of someone's common sister, who turns out to be beautiful and witty. And he's like, oh, she's obviously innocent, even though she's obviously playing him, or at least it seems that way so far. We're halfway through that thing. We're on part 1 track, halfway through track 7. It's like 2 hours and 43 minutes into it. So as it gets dark, that's what I've got so far about the blade itself. It's very much kind of the grim dark, I guess, but it's there I can see he's putting places and things. The characters are popping as distinct characters. He's got his pot, which I like, and we have the torturer with his like, he's aching, but he's also, and he's ruthless and brutal, but he's also very smart. and knows his way around stuff. And we have the Twit Lord, who is obviously going to have to learn some hard lessons in life, and we'll see how that goes. Whether he ends up getting butchered, and whether he screws over poor Wes's sister, or her sister screws over him because she seems like a smart cookie. We'll have to see. I mean, I also worry about female characters in books like this, because sometimes that's when you show how grimdark you are by horribly mistreating the female characters. But we'll see. Yeah, go from there.